Chapter 5 The Satanic Verses. As Muhammad left the Kaaba one night, he heard footsteps behind him. Someone was following him home. He expected trouble, for the man about to overtake him was Mr. Stupid's nephew, Omar, who was tall, strong, and violent. To his astonishment, Omar told him, "I want to become a Muslim." Nobody knows what they said to each other, or how Omar convinced Muhammad that he was sincere. Omar's problem was that so many members of his father's family had converted to Islam that he was about to lose control of them unless he too became a Muslim. Omar could be useful to Muhammad. He was very clever. He was a champion wrestler who frightened people. He had a lot of money and he was willing to spend it all for Islam. He might even neutralize the hostile family of Mr. Stupid, who was his mother's brother. In fact, with Omar on his side, Muhammad really might be able to take over the Kaaba. The next day, Omar knocked on the door of the house where the Muslims had gathered. Muhammad stood in front of their nervous audience to greet his new ally. Omar laughed as he announced, "O Allah's Messenger, I have come to believe in Allah and His Messenger and His divine message." After making his declaration of faith before the Muslims, Omar marched out of the Kaaba and shouted it to the whole city. The Quraysh arose to attack him, and Omar beat them off for hours. He kept grabbing at prominent citizens and wrestling them down, tirelessly beating and being beaten. The fight lasted until noon. From that day onward, Omar was the best friend of Muhammad and Abu Bakr. The three of them were always together. Nobody dared attack a Muslim after Omar became their protector. It was an emergency for the Quraysh. The elders met at the town hall opposite the Kaaba and laid a plan. They decided that Muhammad's family must deliver him to be killed. Until they did, the whole family, including Islam Muslims, was boycotted. Nobody would trade, marry, or socialize with them. They had no protection against assault or robbery if they moved out of one designated safety area. The elders wrote out their order and posted it in the middle of the Kaaba. The safety area was a mountain pass on the eastern edge of Mecca. Its only entrance was so narrow that it could be constantly guarded. Abu Talib gathered the family and led them through the entrance. Once the guard was posted, the family was safe but trapped between the cliffs. Mr. Redface, who had disowned his family and joined the Quraysh, rejoiced. "Al-Lat and Al-Uzza have won." Muhammad's family camped in the gorge, while the Quraysh enforced their boycott. They refused to sell or give to the family. If merchants from another tribe arrived in Mecca, the Quraysh raced up to buy all the supplies, even if they had to buy on credit. The family depended on a few smugglers who were willing to deceive the Quraysh. One merchant used to load his camel with food and lead it to the gorge by night. At the entry, he used to whack its side so that it would squeeze through the gateway with its delivery. Since the family had no way of earning money to pay for this food, they had to spend all their savings. Khadija invested all her wealth in supporting the Muslim community. Technically, this was allowed as she was not a member of Abu Talib's family. Abu Talib still worried about Muhammad's safety. He made sure that his nephew never slept in his own bed. Every night a different man changed places with him so that, if an assassin broke through the gateway in the dark, the wrong man would be murdered. Gabriel continued to bring Allah's messages to Muhammad. He urged the Muslims not to give up. "Successful indeed are the believers who are humble in their prayers, and who keep aloof from what is vain, and who are givers of poor rate, and who guard their private parts, and those who are keepers of their trust and their covenant, and those who keep a guard on their prayers. These are they who are the heirs, who shall inherit the paradise. They shall abide therein. Muhammad reminded his faithful followers of the glories of heaven. Allah will be there, and He will never be angry with you again. You will live forever and never become sick, but will always be 30 years old. Your clothes will never wear out, and you will have combs and dishes of gold and silver. You will eat and drink, but you will never urinate, defecate, salivate, or nose drip. You will have no quarrels or enmity. How happy are the companions of the right hand, amid thornless lote trees and banana trees, one above another, and extended shade and water flowing constantly, and abundant fruit, neither intercepted nor forbidden, and exalted thrones. The lote tree is so large, Muhammad said, that you can ride 100 years in its shade without passing it. In it are golden butterflies and golden dates. There are rivers flowing with water, honey, milk, or wine. He also promised, nobody will be single in heaven. You will keep any wives that you had on earth, and every man will also have 2 heavenly brides. These brides will be beautiful virgins with wide, dark eyes and rounded breasts, the marrow of their bones visible through their shimmering, pale flesh. Those who restrain their eyes, before them neither man nor jinni shall have touched them, as though they were rubies and pearls. In them are goodly things, beautiful ones, pure ones confined to the pavilions. Man has not touched them before them, nor jinni, reclining on green cushions and beautiful carpets. These perfect maidens would welcome Muslim men to everlasting sex parties, and each man would have 100 times the sexual stamina of earth. However, there was no need to worry about jealousy between the women. You will live in a pavilion made of hollow pearls 60 miles wide and high. No wife will see the woman in the other corners or even notice you moving around from one to another. By this time, Khadija was in her late 40s and not as beautiful as she had been. Muhammad spoke often of the dark-eyed heavenly brides, yet Khadija calmly wished him joy with his new wives and never indicated that this kind of talk bothered her. Muhammad continued to confide his discouragements in her, and she was quick to comfort him. There have been many perfect men, he said, but only 4 perfect women. They are Queen Asiya of Egypt, the Virgin Mary, my wife Khadija, and our daughter Fatima. He spoke even more about hell than heaven. The only path from earth to heaven was a hair-fine, sword-sharp, slippery bridge that stretched over hell. Angels would guide a virtuous Muslim across, but the unbelievers would fall into the pit of fire below. And those of the left hand, how wretched are those of the left hand, in hot wind and boiling water, and the shade of black smoke, neither cool nor honorable. The fire of hell, Muhammad warned, is 70 times as hot as earthly fire. Even the best person in hell will stand on 2 glowing coals. Hellfire is like boiling oil that the sinner will be forced to drink. When it comes near him, it will melt his face and his skin will fall off into it. It will be poured over his head and sink into his insides. It will slice through his inside organs, and they will trickle out of his anus and pour over his feet and melt away. Then he will be put back together again, and it will happen all over again. Muhammad's family did not dare leave the gorge for 8 months of the year. Only during the 4 sacred months, when all bloodshed was forbidden throughout Arabia, was it safe to emerge. Muhammad made fearless use of those sacred months to recite his prophecies in front of the Kaaba. Gabriel gave him a string of messages that doomed his personal enemies to hell. Muhammad's family was forced to live in the mountain pass for 3 years. In the 3rd year, Khadija's money ran out. It was only when they had no way of buying food that the boycott would finally achieve its original aim of starving them. They became hungry. People in Mecca, living on the cliffs on either side, could hear the screams of the starving children arising from the gorge. One man was so desperate that he washed a dirty piece of camel skin, baked it, crushed it between the 2 stones, and then ate it dry, forced down with a drink of water. He had no more food for the next 3 days. At this weak point, the Quraysh elders once again tried to negotiate with Muhammad. The high chief approached him at the Kaaba and made him an offer. "Muhammad," they said, "let's combine our religions. We will worship Allah and you can worship our gods. Whichever religion turns out to be better, everyone will share in its goodness." "I don't want that," Muhammad replied. "If that's the condition, keep your religion to yourselves and I'll keep mine." Gabriel confirmed his decision with a new prophecy. "Say, O unbelievers, I do not serve that which you serve, nor do you serve him whom I serve. You shall have your religion, and I shall have my religion." At the same time, Muhammad knew that he could not leave his family starving in the gorge forever. Since the elders were in a mood to make peace, he could exploit this to end the boycott. Soon he was once again standing on the steps of the Kaaba to recite Gabriel's latest message. The crowds listened silently, and their ears pricked up as he reached the words. "Have you thought of Allat and Al-Uzza and Manat the third, the other? These are the exalted flying ones, whose intercession is approved." The polytheists were very impressed by these words, and they repeated them eagerly. They were overjoyed that Muhammad was permitting the worship of 3 of their major goddesses. When Muhammad bowed down at the end of his recitation, all the polytheists bowed down alongside the Muslims. In the emotion of the moment, none of the Muslims noticed how the new revelation approved of multiple gods. They exclaimed, "We will serve the flying ones so that they may bring us near to Allah," not suspecting any mistake or wrong idea. After this united act of shared worship, several of the polytheists wanted to end the boycott. 5 elders formed an alliance and addressed the council. They argued that it was wrong to leave a Quraysh family to starve now that Muhammad had agreed to respect their goddesses. Mr. Stupid opposed the motion, but he was outvoted. An elder ripped up the deed of boycott. Muhammad's family returned to their homes in Mecca.